fact, I never like made a conscious decision of like, okay, I'm gonna drink less, or okay, I'm really gonna cut back from drinking. It's just naturally happened over the last couple years.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Sweatable podcast. My name is Brooks Herbis, and I'm an online fitness, nutrition, and mindset coach who's here to help you simplify and make sense out of the all too confusing fitness and nutrition industry. Let's be real, there's a lot of conflicting information online, and it can be hard to know what's legit and who to trust. In every episode, I'll be sharing the science and psychology behind health, fitness, and long-lasting behavior change. But I'll also be sharing real-life practical application, because all of the best info in the world only matters if you can actually apply it to your real life. So grab a coffee, water, glass of wine, or lace up your walking shoes, and let's dive in.
Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Sweatable podcast. Today is another personal type episode. And we are talking all about what I've learned from cutting back on alcohol. And I've talked a little bit about this on my Instagram, but when I'm recording this, if you're listening in real time, it is early April of 2025. And I've had less than 10 drinks this year. I want to say I've probably had like, I don't know, 7 or so, maybe less. And honestly, if you had told me at 22 that that would be the case, that I would be, barely drinking, I don't know if I would have believed you. And I feel like it's because, one, alcohol is just like so not just accepted, but also encouraged in our culture. I feel like it's really pushed at social events, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed having a wine night with my girlfriends, and having beers at happy hour, and going to rooftop bars for cocktails. Like, I enjoyed a lot of that. And I feel like a lot of the times when people talk about cutting back on alcohol, it's because they had some big shift, or they noticed it was like really impacting something in their life. Like, they were always waking up hungover and like not accomplishing the things that they wanted to do, or they noticed it was like impacting their relationships or their job, or they noticed that they were really using it as like a coping mechanism at the end of like a hard, stressful day. I just feel like it's always around these more severe problems or impacts that they're seeing. And to be completely honest, this was not really the case for me. In fact, I never like made a conscious decision of like, okay, I'm gonna drink less, or okay, I'm really gonna cut back from drinking. It's just naturally happened over the last couple years. As I've gotten older, I've naturally just like decreased alcohol in general every year, but really specifically the last like year, it has decreased dramatically. And it was a really natural shift. And if you are sitting here like, man, I'm curious about this, like, I know I want to decrease my alcohol consumption, or I just like wonder what it would feel like, maybe even relate to the fact that like it doesn't really feel like a big issue or something you like have to do, but you're just curious about it. I just wanted to share more about my experience, why I've kind of cut back, what I've noticed when I've cut back, because to be honest, it has been nothing but positive. So starting, back when I was 19, 20, just kidding, 21 and older only, I was drinking in college, a lot. Like, my friends and I were going out almost every single night. We went to school in a small town in Ohio. There was nothing else to do besides the college campus. It was incredible. It was amazing. But it was really like the only thing we did was we just like went out and we drank. And when I graduated college and I was living in, a city, I was still, what am I saying? I still live in a city, but you know what I mean? I was still drinking on the weekends a lot with my friends. We were, going out to bars. That was like our main social activity. And with every year that I've gotten older, I've reduced my alcohol intake more and more. It wasn't some big shift. It wasn't some like huge monumental like moment. It wasn't like me having this like come to Jesus moment where I was like, I need to change how much I'm drinking. I need to like stop my drinking. This is something I'm really going to like work on. It's just kind of naturally happened. And what I've come to realize as I've reduced my alcohol intake is that number one, I don't really enjoy how alcohol makes me feel. And in fact, the less that I drink it, the more of a difference I feel when I do drink. And what I've also realized is that I just don't need it. I don't need alcohol to have fun with my friends. I don't need alcohol to enjoy a sporting event. I don't need it to deal with social anxiety. Like, I just don't need it. And the more and more that I learned about the health effects of alcohol, because it is a known toxin, and I kind of got to the point where I was like, if something is a known toxin, I know that it is not impacting my health in any positive way, and it's also making me not feel good. Like, why am I still drinking it? Like, why am I even having it at all? So in this episode, it's not just about the effects of like alcohol on your health and fat loss. It's more about my own personal experience and what I've noticed as I've stopped drinking. So if you're considering reducing your alcohol intake, but you're worried about, how it might impact your social life or what it might mean for X, Y, and Z, this is the episode for you. If you do want the full details, the full rundown on alcohol, how it impacts health, how it impacts fat loss, I do have a whole other health podcast. Oh my God, just a whole other podcast. I guess it is a health podcast. About the facts of alcohol in your health and fat loss. So I'll link that in the show notes. But this one is going to be more personal experience and just kind of something that I've noticed. But I don't want to leave you hanging because I do think that some context is needed when we're talking about why I decided to start drinking less, and what I kind of think about in general when I think about alcohol is we got to start with just like the facts. And the fact is that alcohol is a toxin. Alcohol is classified as a group 1 carcinogen by the International Agency for Cancer Research. What that means is that there is sufficient evidence that alcohol causes cancer in humans. It has been linked to an increased risk of multiple types of cancer, including liver, breast, colon, rectal, like that's a list, okay? And do with that what you will. I am not saying that with judgment. I have still had some drinks this year. I just shared that. I still choose to drink sometimes. Everything we do in life has a risk. Driving in a car, that is a risk. Going out in the sun, that is a risk. Everything that we do is a risk. So you really just need to decide if the risk is worth it to you or if it's not. For me, because of the things that I, kind of outlined around how alcohol makes me feel and, X, Y, and Z, I've decided that it's probably not really worth the risk for me. And I would much rather reduce my alcohol consumption, but you might feel differently. You might feel that this is a risk that is worth it for you, but maybe you wear full protective sun gear when you go out in the sun, like we all have to decide that for ourselves. What risk is worth it because it's a positive impact to our life, and what risk is not worth it because it's a negative impact to your life. So I just want to share the facts so that you can then make the decision about how you want to handle it and what you want to do with it. And for me, the main thing that, made me start to think about alcohol differently and start to shift when and why I was having it is I started to really realize that a lot of the time as I got older, a lot of the time I was drinking out of habit and not because I actually wanted to. And for a long time, I kept like really saying like, well, I just like really love wine and I just like, really like love beer. And you know what? Sometimes that is true, but the less I drink, the more I realize I don't really enjoy it all that much. And I was mostly just drinking in scenarios because I always had before. So like I was getting a beer because we were at a brewery. I had a glass of wine at book club because it was offered to me. Like, you get the drift. And when I realized I was not even having it because I wanted to, but because I just always had, I wanted to try to challenge myself to not drink in those moments. And full disclosure, like sometimes it was uncomfortable. But I just did another podcast recently about managing discomfort, surfing the urge, sitting in those uncomfortable feelings. And I challenged myself to sit in the discomfort rather than try to get rid of it by just having a drink. So it might be a little bit uncomfortable at first. You might, because it's a change and it's going to feel weird if, you're used to ordering a drink in certain situations and you're not. Like, that's going to feel uncomfortable. But just a reminder that, like, you can do uncomfortable things. You can sit in the discomfort. You don't have to always give into that urge, that desire to soothe that feeling. You can sit in the discomfort. So remember that. And also remember that the more you sit in it, the easier it gets. So a few fears that I had around cutting back alcohol in general, I was really worried that because, most of our friends still drink. I would say it's becoming more and more accepted to not be drinking. And I think it's becoming more and more common to be sober curious. But in general, I feel like in a lot of different social groups and a lot of different situations, alcohol is always offered, alcohol is always available, alcohol is sometimes even like the center of the event. So when I started to cut back, at first I was like, is this going to be awkward? Are people going to ask me a lot of questions? Of course, being a married female who doesn't have kids, I was certain that a lot of people would just automatically assume I was pregnant. And what I really realized is that most of the time, people don't care. People are very self-absorbed. People are worried about themselves. I'm lucky enough to be friends and hang out with people who are health conscious, who are not judgmental. And I would say like 9 out of 10 times, if I didn't get a drink, no one said a word. And oftentimes people didn't even realize that I wasn't drinking. And the more that other people tend to drink, the less they tend to notice when you're not drinking. So just keep that in mind. A lot of this like fear, a lot of this pressure that you're putting on yourself, it's really internal. And I would bet that, once you start trying it, you're going to realize that a lot of these fears that you have never even come to fruition. Now, I will say, if you know that you have friends who tend to peer pressure you, or you have friends who really enjoy drinking, this is going to be a bit of a shift, and they're going to feel uncomfortable and you're going to feel a little more uncomfortable too. Number one, I'm not saying you need to like cut these people out of your life, but if you do notice that they are, continually not supporting your health goals, even after you've explained it to them, maybe it is worth reevaluating that relationship, because you do want to be around people who support you and encourage your goals when you're doing it for, a health-centered reason. But it can also really help to have a few rationalizations or explanations in your back pocket if you know that these things are going to pop up. So you can either go into a longer explanation around like, you know what, I've really been like focusing on my health and alcohol just like doesn't make me feel good. So like, I'm going to pass on it. Or you can keep it super simple and say like, oh, I have a big day tomorrow. I, want to make sure I'm not hungover. Or like, you know what, I'm just not feeling very good. So I'm going to maybe have some later. You get to decide. You know what kind of friends you have. You know how responsive they will be to certain situations. So if you think that this will come up, if you think it will be an issue, especially with some groups of people over others, just have those in your back pocket so that you can immediately pull it out instead of, if we don't have this in our back pocket, we're going to go back to what used to be our default. And what used to be our default is ordering the drink. So if you want to continue to work on this and not order the drink, have something else in your back pocket. But remember that a lot of those fears that you're currently having, it probably like won't even come to fruition. So keep that in mind. Because what I really noticed, like what actually happened, was that most people didn't notice. Most people didn't care. Most people were focused on their own fun, their own drinks, didn't even register what I was drinking. And most importantly, the less I drank in these social situations, the easier it became. So if you can get over that initial hump of those like first few events where you're like, this is going to be so awkward. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I'm going to feel uncomfortable. One, know you like might feel uncomfortable, and that's okay, but also know that the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. Once you get through that like first girls' night where everyone else is having the wine and you get a Diet Coke, you're going to be like, oh, wait, that was actually fine. And I survived and I still had just as much fun. Then the next time you go to girls' night, you're going to be able to say, oh, yeah, okay, remember last time I was at girls' night, I got the Diet Coke and I still had just as much fun. So I'm going to do that again. We don't know what we don't know. So in order to feel more comfortable with this new habit, in order to feel comfortable choosing non-alcoholic options, you need to practice it over and over and over again. So just try it. And I would really encourage you to start trying it in less intense, I guess I would say, social situations. So if you know this is going to be hard for you and you know that there are certain groups of friends that are going to question it more than others, or there's going to be certain social situations you're going to feel more uncomfortable than others, practice it in the less intense, easier situations first, and then we can work up to those like harder situations too. And also remember, this can look different for you than it did for me. For me, this really looked like I rarely drink anymore, but sometimes I will still have like a couple drinks here or there. For you, it might look like, going from 4 drinks down to 2, or just like reducing the days that you're drinking. So there's no one size fits all approach. And you really get to decide what this looks like. It does not have to be you go completely sober. It does not have to be you stop, drinking completely at social events. It could look like reducing the frequency or reducing the amount that you're having at all of these. So that's really important to keep in mind too. And just remember, like, take it one thing at a time. The more you do it, the more you practice it, the easier it's going to get. For me personally, the benefits that I have realized with significantly cutting back is my workouts are so much better because, I got to the point where I was only really, drinking on the weekends, but still that Monday morning workout, I could just tell that I hadn't slept as well. I wasn't as recovered, and it just always felt a little bit harder. So you're going to experience better workouts because alcohol does really impact recovery. Your sleep will be so much better. And as we know, sleep is the foundation for everything. And when we have any amount of alcohol in our system from the day, we are not getting full REM sleep. So keep that in mind. Alcohol impacts sleep big time, and the less you're drinking, the better your sleep is going to be. As I've gotten older, have noticed that alcohol skyrockets my anxiety the next day. Like, I just feel really anxious for no reason and I can't really place it. So I would rather drink less and have less anxiety. That makes me feel better personally. I feel like I have just as much fun at these social events. In fact, sometimes I feel like I have more fun because I'm like more present, more aware, more just like in the connection aspect of it, as opposed to, alcohol just kind of creates this like fog, and it impacts your ability to create memories. So, I'd rather be like fully in it and fully present than, having this like fog over the situation. Just in general too, I think way more clearly. I am way more focused. I have way more creativity. And I notice that throughout the whole week, especially like if I do have a glass of wine or something at book club, and then the next morning I can feel the fog. I can like feel how hard it is to focus, because the less I drink, the more noticeable that is. So I don't even want to think about how much of a fog and how unfocused I was when I was drinking more often. And I just didn't even realize, because that was how I always felt. So if you, want increased creativity, if you want to be focusing more, drink less alcohol. Like, truly, I just feel so much better overall with the less I drink. So keep it in mind. Just remember, like, this is not all or nothing. Cutting back doesn't mean that you have to never drink again. It just means that you're being more intentional about your consumption. It just means that you're getting curious about, like, can I sit in the discomfort of not having drinks? Can I still enjoy myself even when I'm not having drinks? And if this is something you've been like thinking about, this is something you've been like wanting to try, but you're feeling nervous or you don't even know how to start, shoot me a DM. I would really love to help. I know that this can be a sensitive topic. I know, again, because it's just so normalized in our society that it can feel like it has to be this like big thing or this big announcement, or you need this big like reason to stop drinking. And I'm just here to give this perspective that like it really doesn't. It really doesn't have to be a big deal. No one has ever like brought up or asked me the fact that I'm like drinking less. It has really never come up in conversation with my friends at social events unless I've brought it up like, hey, I'm drinking less. But no one has noticed or asked about it. So it doesn't have to be this whole thing. It doesn't have to be this like big decision and this big like proclamation and like I'm changing my life. You can just try it. You can just practice it. You can just see how it feels and see if it's something that you want to keep doing. You want to keep reducing your alcohol intake. You want to keep drinking less. So I promise it's going to be way less of a big deal than you think. And there's going to be a lot more benefits that if you're someone who's drinking frequently right now, you probably don't even realize how good you could feel if you cut back on your alcohol intake. So if it's something you're considering, but you're not sure where to start or you're feeling hesitant, shoot me a DM. I would love to chat through it with you guys further. But as always, that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to these more personal episodes. Let me know if you like these, you like hearing more about what I'm working on in my own health and fitness journey. Shoot me a DM, shoot me an email. Just as a reminder, I always pick one person every single month who leaves a review or takes a screenshot, shares it to your story, and tags me in it to win a free health and fitness audit with me. So if you want a chance to win one of those, please share it with your friends, share it on your stories. It really helps my podcast grow a lot, and I so appreciate it as always. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I will be back next week.